Sourah Al Baqara. Part 2. Introduction. Remaining part of historical background. At Mecca, Islam was mainly concerned with the propagation of its fundamental principles and the moral training of its followers. But after the migration of the Holy Prophet to Al-Madinah, where Muslims had come to settle from all over Arabia, and where a tiny Islamic state had been set up with the help of the Ansar, local support, naturally the Quran had to turn its attention to the social, cultural, economic, political and legal problems as well. This accounts for the difference between the themes of the surahs revealed at Mecca and those at Al-Madinah. Accordingly, about half of this surah deals with those principles and regulations which are essential for the integration and solidarity of a community and for the solution of its problems. After the migration to Al-Madinah, the struggle between Islam and un-Islam had also entered a new phase. Before this, the believers, who propagated Islam among their own clans and tribes, had to face its opponents at their own risk. But the conditions had changed at Al-Madinah, where Muslims from all parts of Arabia had come and settled as one community, and had established an independent city-state. Here it became a struggle for the survival of the community itself, for the whole of non-Muslim Arabia was bent upon and united in crushing it totally. Hence the following instructions, upon which depended not only its success but its very survival, were revealed in this surah. 1. The community should work with the utmost zeal to propagate its ideology and win over to its side the greatest possible number of people. 2. It should so expose its opponents as to leave no room for doubt in the mind of any sensible person that they were adhering to an absolutely wrong position. 3. It should infuse in its members, the majority of whom were homeless and indigent and surrounded on all sides by enemies, that courage and fortitude which is so indispensable to their very existence in the adverse circumstances in which they were struggling, and to prepare them to face these boldly. 4. It should also keep them ready and prepared to meet any armed menace which might come from any side to suppress and crush their ideology, and to oppose it tooth and nail, without minding the overwhelming numerical strength and the material resources of its enemies. 5. It should also create in them that courage which is needed for the eradication of evil ways, and for the establishment of the Islamic way instead. 6. That is why Allah has revealed in this surah such instructions as may help achieve all the above-mentioned objects. During this period, a new type of Muslims, munafiqeen, hypocrites, had begun to appear. Those signs of duplicity had been noticed in the last days at Mecca. They took a different shape at Al-Madinah. At Mecca there were some people who professed Islam to be true but were not prepared to abide by the consequences of this profession, and to sacrifice their worldly interests and relations, and bear the afflictions which inevitably follow the acceptance of this creed. But at Al-Madinah different kinds of munafiqeen began to appear. There were some who had entered the Islamic fold merely to harm it from within. There were others who were surrounded by Muslims and, therefore, had become Muslims to safeguard their worldly interests. They, therefore, continued to have relations with the enemies so that if the latter became successful, their interests should remain secure. There were still others who had no strong conviction of the truth of Islam, but had embraced it along with their clans. Lastly, there were those who were intellectually convinced of the truth of Islam, but did not have enough moral courage to give up their former traditions, superstitions, and personal ambitions, and live up to the Islamic moral standards and make sacrifice in its way. At the time of the revelation of Al-Baqarah, all sorts of hypocrites had begun to appear. Allah has, therefore, briefly pointed out their characteristics here. Afterwards, when their evil characteristics and mischievous deeds became manifest, Allah sent detailed instructions about them.